Alright, so I'm gonna do a different video. I normally just show me, stuff that I build in or working on or updates. But what I got there is a cheap Bachmann 18 radius turnout, which used to look like this one. Now, I got these cheap because they are cheap to build a temp layout on the attic of the floor attic in a home that I rent. I put it on the floor because the table would have had a small layout, and as you can see, this thing is about 13.5 by 10.5, maybe a little bit bigger. Originally I had this line here split, and it either went down below or up in the hill. Well, what I wanted to do was add another line all the way around, so I did that. And I didn't have the room, really, because it's tight quarters here, to do the same thing what I did with these lousy Bachmanns, which create an unrealistic S-turn, which you really have to, unless you have a small train, you got to really slow down going through them. They're prone to derailing if you're not careful. So what I did was, I had bought a lot of train stuff, and in the lot were these steel Bachmann switches. I tested them all. The solenoids worked. The points were okay. I had to clip them a little bit and file them a little bit or sand them down so they worked better. But what I did here, as you can see, it's different. See how close these rails are compared to those two? So what I did was I took the track off the bed, and I cut the road ties like a piece of flex track, and I straighten the rail out. So it comes off and then it goes straight for about 5.5 inches, because there are no trains in HO scale that have more than a 5.5 or 5-inch wheelbase as far as trucks go. Well, not that I have anyway. So from here to here is about 5.5 inches. So the train goes in through that a lot smoother than coming in here and then forcing the truck back this way. I mean, my big boy goes through it, but you can see it's struggling. But on this here, I mean, I can go through this thing half throttle and the thing won't derail. So again, what I did was I cut the road ties underneath. I straightened the track and I snipped it. I could have had it longer and it would have been straighter, but I didn't want these two rails to be so far apart. I wanted them to look more realistic and be on top of one another like they usually are, unless of course if you're in a rail yard. So I did that to this, and I did one to that, and then I glued them together, and there's two rail joiners in there, which I'm gonna isolate this rail from this rail and have a switching mechanism, so I can either have everything off of one power supply or completely switch this and have it completely isolated from this track. I just haven't done it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just Dremel through the damn thing. Dremel through it and then peel the rail joiners off with a pick tool. Or I might just peel the rail joiners off and then separate the rails a little bit. I don't know yet how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it eventually. Right now it's just it's tied in, and that's okay with running DCC, but running DC, I would like to have one train going one way and one the other, And unless I flip-flop the polarity on the motor, that's not going to happen. So eventually I will isolate it. So what you see here is I did this one and this one. They work really well. They're electric switches. They work. This is a piece of flex track. There's foam board underneath this. I wrapped this in gray vinyl that looks like stone, rocks, whatever, kitty litter. And then the spots of crazy glue and baking soda holding it down. That way, when I do finally get out of this house and I want to rip this stuff up, I just slide a razor blade underneath it and slice it off. No harm, no foul. This is all foam. A lot of the track has foam underneath it and in between the tracks. Some of it is on top of old linoleum, like this piece here. Vinyl wrapped down so the tracks can't move, because obviously I can't screw it to the guy's floor. This entire layout goes uphill in this direction, and then it goes up even more hill. So it's kind of got a natural grade. Now, the going uphill here used to be really steep. So what I did was, at this point, I started gradually going up, and you can see the rails higher. And you can see going down there how it gets. It's not as dramatic as it was before, so it pulls cars up the hill a lot easier. Sorry about the dust. I don't know what that's from, but it's really dusty up here. So anyway, that's that. Modified Bachmann, cheap. Turnouts. I was thinking about when my big boy goes in here, because it's got those big pizza cutter flanges, it raises the wheel because this groove here is a lot higher than the rail itself. Has anybody taken a Dremel and dropped that groove down a little bit so it's not as high? If they have, leave a comment. Let me know how it works. I should have tried that on one of these before I stuck it down permanently. That way I would have my own answer, but I didn't. So anyway, so that's that. These old Bachmann switches are a lot better. Now, this one here I bought. I paid like $60 for it. This one here is okay. This one here was modified. These pieces here, when they're like a month old from running trains over them, they pop out. And underneath, if you dismantle it, there's this little washer that's crimped onto the pin that comes off the points. And it's just crimped on there and it comes off. So what you need to do is tip it upside down when it's brand new and either drop very, very carefully a spot of glue on it, or very, very carefully drop a ball of solder on it. I would recommend either re-crimping it or gluing it. Soldering it, you can melt this, because you know the heat transfers right through the nickel and onto the plastic. I would stay away from these. They look nicer when they work nicer. This one even has an isolated frog if you decide to use it, but they fall apart. So these old ones, these crappy ones, have rivets on them. They very seldom break. The only things that break are the either the spring inside wears down and they don't switch right, or the points don't line up right. And what happens is the tie underneath here, this wears, and then this point scrapes along it and it causes it to drag. And if you're really careful, you can shave some of the bottom of the point off so it won't touch the road tie. I actually did that, and I think this one here. I used a razor blade and shaved down the plastic. You can see it. And that way it switches a lot easier. It doesn't drag anymore. So these old ones have rivets. The ones that don't fall apart. And a cat here. My cat was up here. So anyway, yeah, these were all 18-inch radius. They come, you know, they're cheap. They're online. They're on Amazon, but they're really unrealistic. No train would ever go through an S-turn like that. I threw this layout down not thinking about that, or I would have definitely chopped them. So you can see how that's got a bend coming right off. And then when you look at this one here, see how it comes right off straight, and then it basically goes straight into here until it starts turning again. So it's much more smoother. We'll run the train through it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Alright, here we go. I'll switch that. Okay. Now we'll come around and we'll switch this, and then we'll switch. We'll switch that up. I went through there too fast, fell over. Hold on for a minute, let me fix that. Okay, so I popped the train back on. I didn't have the switch, was halfway thrown. I guess I didn't hold it long enough. But you'll see how much of us. This train here goes through these pretty good anyway. See how much this whole train has to. The front truck's going this way, the back one's that way. This one here is still swapped over. I mean, it goes through it, but it's just not something you really want to. I've never ran this train through this layout, this section of the layout, so I don't know if it's going to derail or not. I guess we can give it a shot. Slow down here. I don't know what's going to happen going through this one. See how much that train has to move? Now, can you imagine a passenger car doing all that? So this allows me to separate the tracks eventually, because now I have two full loops. Instead of just going up the hill or staying on the flat surface. So now I can go So it goes over those modified Bachmanns a lot smoother. So I'm pretty happy with it. So if you got any cheap turnouts that have too much of a turn, you do have the option to tip them upside down, and the rail that's coming off at an angle to basically turn it into a piece of flex track. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's done this. But anyway, that's it. I hope this video wasn't too boring. Thanks for watching.